Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Duthier. Anne-Marie Green will be back tomorrow. We begin this hour with a late addition to tomorrow's Democratic debate in Nevada. For the very first time, Michael Bloomberg will take to the stage. A new national poll qualified him this morning, and it finds the former New York City mayor in second place with 19% support, while Senator Bernie Sanders leads the pack with 31%. CBS News 2020 reporter Alex Tin joins us now from Las Vegas with more on what we can expect. All right, Alex, you've made Nevada your home over the past couple of months. I'm very curious to what folks in Nevada, how they're responding to the news that Michael Bloomberg will be on that campaign trail, and if his messaging and the millions of dollars he's spending on ads in the state are actually resonating.
Well, to be clear, Michael Bloomberg is spending millions of dollars campaigning, running advertisements, both online and on TV. But you won't see a lot of that here in Nevada, and that's because very early on, Michael Bloomberg made clear that his campaign wasn't going to focus on the first 4 early states. That includes Nevada right here. What that means is that he didn't even bother to file for the ballot to show up on the Nevada caucus. He hasn't aired any ads here. He hasn't come and appeared at events like this one, forums where all of the candidates are facing questions from activists and community leaders, asking them questions about their communities here in Nevada. In fact, not only is Michael Bloomberg not even on the ballot here in Nevada, but when you go talk to people in line, they've never heard of Michael Bloomberg. Maybe they've heard of him somewhere connected to New York and the mayor. Maybe they saw 1 or 2 news articles from the organization that's named after him. But at the end of the day, all of that money that Michael Bloomberg is spending, none of that is coming here to Nevada. And I'm sure that's going to pose a challenge to them as they're preparing for a debate stage right here in Las Vegas, not too far from where I am at another casino on the Las Vegas Strip, where I'm sure he will face questions on Nevada-specific issues that are important to communities here in this state that his campaign has not even focused on because, again, their strategy runs way past the first 4 early states.
Really fascinating. All right, so let's focus on the candidates who have made Nevada a state that they are politicking in. Prominent national Latino group, Mi Gente, is making its first ever presidential endorsement, and they are backing Senator Bernie Sanders for president. So tell us about the impact that this could have on the race going forward.
Well, the irony of this endorsement is that Senator Bernie Sanders has already picked up so many endorsements from the Latino communities, both locally and nationally. Take, for example, Make the Road Nevada, which is part of the Make the Road national network of organizations that is already deploying their organizers and their prowess that has been working in communities like Las Vegas for months in these majority working class Latino and Hispanic neighborhoods, taking those organizers and devoting them to the cause of door knocking for Bernie Sanders. So with the addition of Mi Gente, yes, that's another example of how Bernie Sanders is trying to tout his support among the Latino Hispanic community as well as protect it. But at the same time, it's in some ways no surprise and no different than what we already knew, which is the campaign is focused on those communities, has long been focused on those communities, and sees it as a real advantage as we start to enter these more ethnically diverse states like Nevada, South Carolina, and eventually Super Tuesday states like California.
And what's the latest, Alex, with the dispute and with the dispute with the Culinary Union?
Well, we heard Senator Bernie Sanders, while he was campaigning here in Nevada, basically say that those people who were criticizing the Culinary Union, that they were alleged to be harassing Culinary Union leadership and spokespeople online, that those people were not part of his movement. He didn't condone that kind of behavior. But the core of the dispute remains the same. The Culinary Union, unlike some of its fellow Unite Here locals in California or Arizona, is not a fan of Medicare for All, specifically the single-payer style health care that would roll back essentially their own hard-won union-based health care plans. Obviously, the senator has addressed those concerns. He went to a town hall with the group a couple of months ago now. His surrogates have aggressively courted people within the Unite Here and Culinary Union membership. But at the end of the day, their position is clear. They're not fans of Medicare for all. They are willing to break with their fellow Unite Here locals in criticizing Medicare for all. And, of course, Bernie Sanders is not going to be changing his position of Medicare for all either.
All right, let's talk about former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren. They've been struggling in the polls, Alex, as you know. What do you think, in your estimation, in talking to folks there on the ground, would they need to do in order to recover and regain the top spots they once held?
Well, you have to understand that Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren especially have been investing heavily in a campaign infrastructure here for months. They've been hiring organizers. They've been developing connections. Elizabeth Warren's team was one of the first teams on the ground here in Nevada way back early in last year. And those campaigns are now trying to take that strategy and execute on it, essentially leveraging all of those connections that they've worked on for so long to convince those people and their friends and their neighbors to come out in early caucus or caucus on caucus day on February 22nd. And you've seen Joe Biden take all of those relationships that he's built over years, either through his campaign or through campaigning for others, including many of the elected officials right here in this state, and start to roll out those big, heavy-hitting endorsements as we enter the final stretch of this caucus. You saw just over the past weekend, Congressman Stephen Horsford, a swing district Democrat right here in Nevada, becoming the second of Nevada's congressional delegation to endorse a candidate, both of them endorsing Joe Biden, as well as the Lieutenant Governor, Kate Marshall, one of the highest-ranking statewide elected officials to endorse any candidate, and she chose Joe Biden. So, like I said, in this final stretch of the caucus, they've had a strategy for a long time, and now it's time to execute on it, because for both of them, Nevada could be make or break for their campaigns.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let me ask you about Senator Klobuchar. She did well in New Hampshire. How does she plan to keep up with the front runners there in Nevada?
Well, despite not having a campaign infrastructure here for months, she has rushed in a massive sum of staff that are on the ground right now, organizing events, knocking on doors, even building out their infrastructure as early voting was already occurring. And some of that you are seeing already working in the lines when you go to these caucus locations, these early voting caucus locations, where you run into people in line with Amy Klobuchar stickers, Amy Klobuchar buttons, Amy Klobuchar literature. You see their organizers hanging out outside, trying to get people coming in the door to make that last-minute decision to make Amy Klobuchar, if not their first choice, the second or third choice. But again, all of that infrastructure was built virtually overnight over the past few weeks. And actually, over the past few days, Amy Klobuchar, like some of the other candidates that don't have gigantic war chests, has had to take time off the campaign trail here in Nevada to do something else that all of the candidates say they hate doing, but sometimes need to do. And that's fundraise across the border in California, removing precious time from the campaign trail right here in this state.
And what about Mayor Pete Buttigieg?
Well, Pete Buttigieg, like the top front-running candidates like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden, has invested heavily in a campaign infrastructure here. He's hired a lot of staff. One of the unique things about his campaign is that they have aggressively attempted to organize in the more rural communities in Nevada. Now, it's up for debate whether spending time in these rural communities will make a lot of difference at the end of the day. After all, Nevada, like Iowa and the other caucus states, is a delegate game. Those delegates are apportioned in certain ways, and, you know, when you're campaigning in a rural part of the same congressional district as a very urban part of the congressional district, it doesn't matter if you win all of those rural places if you lose all the urban places. But nevertheless, Pete Buttigieg has made a focus of campaigning in those rural communities. His campaign just sounded a press release today, this morning, touting the fact that he is the only candidate this week to have campaigned not just in Las Vegas and in Reno, but also in the rural community of Elko, Nevada. And of course, his campaign hopes that that could make the difference in those small margins where they're competing to clear those 15% viability thresholds and pick up delegates across the board.
And Alex, one interesting side note to all of this is, as you know, both Senator Klobuchar and Mayor Pete Buttigieg gave interviews to Telemundo this past week, and when they were asked to name the name of the president of Mexico, Senator Klobuchar fumbled and could not recall or did not know the name of the president of Mexico, while Mayor Pete did. She has done well in these states where the majority of the people living there are primarily white. This is her first test in a state where it's more diverse.
Sure. And well,
and I should just point out that Mayor Pete,
not every presidential.
Yeah, Mayor Pete did get the name
Go ahead.
of President Obrador. He actually got it right.
Sure. And of course, not every presidential candidate is expected to know every single world leader. At least I wouldn't expect them to. However, what you have seen and what I heard anecdotally when talking to people is, look, when you're campaigning in these communities, you talk to people in these communities who are watching the news, who are following the news on their local Spanish language television stations or local Spanish language newspapers. And AMLO comes up a lot when you're covering news and reading news from these Spanish language communities. That's something that I'm sure Pete Buttigieg's campaign has picked up on, has focused on. They've been campaigning a lot in these communities for months. He's been coming here, campaigning here, and hiring staff here. And of course, that's going to be a challenge. Those small little details that often come up when you're building a campaign overnight in these communities, as opposed to campaigning here for months. And I'm sure those kinds of challenges will present themselves too to Mike Bloomberg.
All right, Alex Tin breaking it down for us. Alex, as always, we appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.